Ladies and gentlemen, Republicans will get 19 more GOP House seats after an upcoming Supreme Court ruling. The Supreme Court is going to rule in favor of Trump and Republicans in Louisiana. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. The Supreme Court sides with Trump around 94% of the time. They're always siding with Trump because Democrats and media and others routinely are on the wrong side of history and engage in unconstitutional behavior. Even federal judges make unconstitutional rulings. That's why they're always overturned. The Supreme Court decides what is and isn't constitutional. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Prop 50 in California could lead to a very, very interesting criminal probe. Very, very interesting criminal probe. So you have redistricting under review, very serious criminal legal review. This is huge. We'll learn about Prop 50 in a second. It's a way for California to redistrict and gain 5 more Democratic seats. However, Abbott can get 10 Republican seats, and DeSantis can get a lot more than 5 in Florida. So they keep saying, oh, don't poke the bear. It's like, well, there are a number of bears. The Supreme Court, Trump presidency, Texas, Florida. So if California passes, and they will, Prop 50 to redistrict and gain seats, you're looking at very likely a criminal probe pertaining to why Gavin Newsom, or is Gavin Newsom doing this for political purposes for his presidential run? Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Check out first what Greg Abbott promises if Prop 50 passes.
Governor, great to have you here. Thank you so much. How would you take these Democrat districts out of your state?
So first of all, one reason why this even exists is because of the gross gerrymandering that's already been done by California, Illinois, New York, Massachusetts, and so many Democrat states. What Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, is threatening, and that is if Texas goes through with redistricting that eliminates 5 Democrat seats and aligns our congressional delegation with the values of the state of Texas, he says that he will work toward eliminating 5 Republican seats in California. And I'm saying that if he tries to do that, we have this capability using the same strategy that they're using in California to eliminate in Texas not just 5 seats of Democrats, but in fact 10 seats of Democrats. Yeah. And so here's what we know to oversimplify this.
Let's listen to that again. If California's going to gain 5 seats, it's pretty simple math. Even AOC and Biden and Gavin Newsom can do the math. They're still going to be at a deficit of 5 seats. So Gavin Newsom gains 5 seats with Prop 50. There's a criminal review underway, according to the Associated Press, as to why he's doing that, and does it have anything to do? Is he breaking any federal election laws? Because apparently you'll hear from one Democrat, this is about his presidential aspirations. And is that criminal in nature to redistrict simply for personal gain? But if Prop 50 passes, check it out again.
That eliminates 5 Democrat seats and aligns our congressional delegation with the values of the state of Texas. He says that he will work toward eliminating 5 Republican seats in California. And I'm saying that if he tries to do that, we have this capability using the same strategy that they're using in California to eliminate in Texas not just 5 seats of Democrats, but in fact 10 seats of Democrats. Yeah. And so here's what we know to oversimplify this. And that is, before Texas is working to redraw the congressional lines in the state of Texas, California, Illinois, and New York, they've gone to extremism with regard to drawing lines that eliminate Republicans from the congressional delegations in their states, and they have run out of bullets and will not be able to make any further changes in the future. But Texas and other Republican states will be able to make our states have larger Republican delegations in Congress.
Well, they wrote the book on gerrymandering, and to your point, they got no room left to go in the blue states, so it's not a winning proposition for them. But I want to get to this issue. You've issued warrants for Democrats who have fled the state. We've been following that. What kind of punishment could they face back in Texas?
So there's several different punishments. One is that the warrant is to arrest them if they set foot back into the state of Texas.
So this was an interview when Texas Democrats fled to Illinois simply to protest the redistricting, which Abbott has a right to do. If, like you just heard, if eventually the Democrats came back, but if Prop 50 in California goes through and they get 5 more Republican seats, if they get 5 more Democratic seats, Abbott can get 10 more Republican seats and remove pretty much most of the Democrats from Texas. So it's a losing battle. Prop 50 and Newsom are waging a losing battle. Okay, California used to have a very strong Republican Party. And Lord knows what has to happen for the Republicans to gain back power. But this is about his presidential aspirations. Almost certainly. Check this out.
California Governor Gavin Newsom says today is Liberation Day, vowing to redraw California's congressional map to fight back against President Trump and the GOP push to redistrict Texas. Newsom also stealing Trump's signature style, writing on X, quote, "Donald Taco Trump, as many call him, missed the deadline. California will now draw new, more beautiful maps. They will be historic as they will end the Trump presidency. Dems take back the House."
Gloria Romero is the former Democratic leader of the California State Senate, and she joins us now. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Dems take back the House, okay, but they're only up 3, which is in the margin of error in the generic polling. And also, the Supreme Court, the upcoming Supreme Court victory, gives 19 more seats to Republicans nationwide. And if Texas responds to Prop 50, and so does DeSantis in Florida, that could add even more Republican seats. But let's continue.
Obviously,
good morning.
We have this tit for tat now, I guess, with Greg Abbott looking to add 5 seats. Now Gavin Newsom said he'll do the same thing in California. Is it that simple in California? Is it simple as Gavin Newsom wants to redistrict, so they'll do it?
Well, it's one party rule, and this is what you get when you have a very elite, out of touch with the voters, legislators, but they control all the political levers in California. So this is allegedly about redistricting. We call it Gavin-mandering, and it's about fixing and rigging the maps so that basically it helps Gavin Newsom launch his anti-Trump presidential campaign. That's really what this is about. But yes, it's that easy, sadly.
There is an election involved in this in terms of putting the redistricting on a ballot in November. Is that right?
Correct. It will have to go to the ballot. What's interesting is that right now, the California legislature is on vacation, summer recess. They come back on Monday, and then within 5 days, suddenly, they are supposed to produce maps. This is sort of the ultimate, like an immaculate conception of redistricting, where within 5 days, no public hearings, no visibility, they're suddenly going to produce maps. All of this is already being penciled in.
So the Senate Democrat, the former California State Senate Democrat leader is correct. She is 100% correct. The reason there's a criminal probe underway and that President Trump has called this potentially criminal act is that there's supposed to be hearings, there's supposed to be debate, even among the Republicans in California and the Democrats. There's supposed to be some kind of thought as to where these districts are going to be newly created. And if he's using taxpayer funding money, Gavin Newsom, for his presidential launch, That could be a campaign finance violation, a serious one. That could be there could be a whole bunch of issues, because we're talking about federal law when you're dealing with congressional districts. He could be breaking federal law without a proper review of where the districts should be located.
In backroom meetings controlled by Gavin Newsom and his cronies. For recess. They come back on Monday, and then within 5 days, suddenly they are supposed to produce maps. This is sort of the ultimate, like an immaculate conception of redistricting, where within 5 days, no public hearings, no visibility, they're suddenly going to produce maps. All of this is already being penciled in backroom meetings controlled by Gavin Newsom and his cronies.
You know, real quick, I know places like Orange County have had a tremendous shift over the last maybe 10 years. We have, like, Daryl Issa now is in a different district than he represented for a long time. Is there any areas that would be a big pushback, that they might be surprised? Hey, we thought we turned this blue, but it actually is a GOP candidate that wins.
Well, anything can happen, of course, but it comes down to a political machine. It comes down to muscle and money. And Gavin Newsom, make no doubt about it, this is his vanity launch. He is running for president on the taxpayer dime, trying to jig up the maps, basically. So let's see what happens. Many of us will go out and oppose this, but it all comes down to the role of the media. How is this depicted? And basically, we've already seen with ballot harvesting, mail-in ballots, phony elections already. Basically, the nation is seeing what happens under the so-called party of democracy when all the rules are thrown out and redrawn in order to basically boost the presidential aspirations of an egomaniac leading California.
Yeah, well, Texas is going for 5 Republican seats. It looks like California is going to be going for 5 Democrat seats to negate what Texas is doing.
And then Texas can get 10 more seats. And then DeSantis in Florida could get 5 to 10 seats. Then you have other red states. And then if they start, Missouri, if they start doing exactly what Newsom is doing, the red states have not gerrymandered in the same manner as the blue states. So imagine all the new congressional districts for Republicans.
That map hasn't been released yet, so we will be watching to see what happens when it does. We also want to ask you about Zohran Mamdani in New York, a member of the party that you used.
I pray to God Mamdani wins, because it will be a very interesting experiment in socialism within the nations, or within the global epicenter of capitalism. So if you think a rent freeze is good, somebody needs to ask Mamdani, who's going to fix rundown apartments or apartments that need plumbing if there's a rent freeze and the owners can't afford it or don't want to pay? If it's not profitable to fix the apartment because of the rent freeze in New York, you can't force, let's say, a billionaire to pay if he doesn't think it's profitable. So the people suffer. What happens if grocery stores that are run by the city, nonprofit, go under? So again, you don't have a budget surplus in New York like they think, like socialists or Democrats think they do. But let's continue. The face of the Democratic Party has to be AOC, Zohran Mamdani. That'd be fantastic. Because that little moment in 2016 when I was the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post, you could read my writing on hagoodman.com. That little moment in 2016 when Bernie Sanders could have been the face of the Democratic Party, that would have saved the Democratic Party, even though his policies, many would have failed. I didn't know that at the time. I didn't think about these things. Banning fracking would have been a catastrophe, for example, for heating costs. Medicare for all doesn't even work in Vermont. It would be great if it was nationwide, but they don't even have it in Vermont. And so Democrats aren't running on the things that they claim to care about. But when they cheated Bernie Sanders That was the beginning of the end politically for Democrats nationwide. Let's continue. In 2016, they cheated Bernie Sanders, lied about it, then blamed the Russians. We can go on forever. Then they fabricated Russiagate. And Biden with the auto pen scandal. Now this, Newsom, the DOJ is looking into Newsom's Prop 50.
To be a part of. Yesterday, he was in Staten Island, which is total Trump country. It went plus 30 for Trump this past election, but he is on an anti-Trump tour, and he made these comments about immigration. Listen here.
So on this tour across New York City, each and every borough, as we stand against the Trump administration's attacks on the very fabric of the place we call home, we also lay out what our vision will look like. It is not enough to fight against authoritarianism. What are you also fighting for? We are fighting to keep this city a sanctuary city.
Okay, so that's what it sounded like. There were also protests and boos because, like I said, this is a Trump-friendly portion of New York City. But as somebody that does have real insight into the Democrat Party, how do you view Mamdani? Do you think that most Democrats, and I understand that the party is a big tent, so there's a lot of different perspectives.
So Trump received 30% of the vote in New York City. Okay, Harris received 68%, but this is the epicenter. This is Tammany Hall. He still got 30%. He got more. He got more throughout the state of New York. He was approaching a victory in New Jersey. He could have, if he had campaigned more, won New Jersey, President Trump. So I would love for the face of the Democratic Party to be AOC, Gavin Newsom, Zohran Mamdani. They are very popular within their little kingdoms, their little liberal, highly educated, morally superior, progressive enclaves or states or cities. Nationwide, their policy, like, Democrats should run on making every city a sanctuary city. But they don't want to do that. They don't want to run on that. They don't want to repeal immigration statutes, deportation statutes. They'd rather foment vitriol and venom and put ICE agents at risk. Notice how they loved federal law enforcement in January of 2021, but now not so much. So they go back and forth. They have zero value system in terms of, what the pontificating and the preaching. But they're not for law enforcement. He wants a sanctuary city. Good, run on that nationwide. They want Medicare. They wanted Medicare for all, Green New Deal. Why doesn't AOC run on these things? Why don't they run on sanctuary cities nationwide before 2026? Because they don't truly believe in that nation. On the national stage, Democrats shy away from their alleged value system. It's such a theatrical performance and farce. And that's why they're losing to President Trump. Trump and Republicans believe in their actual value. They're very proud of it. They want to enforce immigration laws. They're very proud. They want to end never-ending military conflict. They don't want to give non-governmental organizations and alliances control of foreign policy or domestic policy. They want tariffs to ensure equitable trade deals and to bring manufacturing back into the country so we don't outsource ourselves into oblivion. They're very proud of these things. Democrats are not proud of their alleged value system. That's why they can only win with these types of candidates within the most liberal places of the country.
But overall, do you think that they view the rise of Mamdani with concern? Are they enthusiastic about what he might bring to the party? Right now, there is an ad out targeting 25 vulnerable Democrats that Republicans just released, trying to tie those Democrats to him. So what are your thoughts on him overall?
Well, I never met him. I was unaware of him when I switched my party. But basically, this is what we mainstream Democrats have seen, that the Democratic Party has become a party of the extreme left, of wokeism, of the Democratic Socialists of America basically having taken over the Democratic Party. So I'm not surprised to see this happening in New York. Increasingly, this is occurring in California at the local levels. Even here in Los Angeles, there are already plans being made to implement rank check, voting, so that basically you can have these kind of very extreme candidates take over with only a handful of votes. But I think even more importantly, it shows the fracture of the Democratic Party. There is no leader within the Democratic Party. And when there's a void, these extreme voices are going to take over. And that's what we're seeing in New York. Once again, I don't see how the Democratic Party comes back. It will continue to descend into chaos and these types of reactions. Maybe Mamdani will win.
Jimmy, what Joe Biden did to the Democrats is far worse than what Jimmy Carter did to the Democratic Party. After Jimmy Carter, you had 8 years of President Reagan and 4 years of Herbert Walker Bush. Okay, so 12 years of Republican rule. The reason the Clintons, incidentally, are so influential to this day within the Democrats is that they saved the Democratic Party from 16 years of Republican rule. But the Democrats don't stand for anything nationwide. They are very proud of their alleged value system within little fiefdoms of liberal enclaves. Mamdani should adopt Zohran Mamdani's value system in 2026 to take back the House. That seems like a logical statement to a great many progressives. Nationwide, it's a recipe for disaster. They won't take back the House if they adopt, if they try to replicate Mamdani's campaign. But see, that's the problem with the Democratic Party. They don't stand for anything. The true believers will vote for Liz Cheney. Everyone will vote for the Democratic candidate. So the nominee they don't even have functioning primaries. The nominee, even if it's Liz Cheney, Mamdani, anyone, they'll vote for. Because Biden won the primary and he was kicked out. So winning a primary means nothing. Bernie Sanders was cheated before he could even win. They rely on media. Nobody trusts media. They rely on Hollywood. Nobody cares about Hollywood. They rely on energy and enthusiasm within liberal enclaves. Then Mamdani wins. But nationwide, they're losing the battle for the House already. And the Supreme Court's going to repeal Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. That could add, like I said, 19, or Politico said 19 new seats. But let's continue.
But ultimately, I think the city will fail because of his leadership.
Wow, yeah. When there's a void in leadership, the extreme voices take over. That's an interesting point to note there. Gloria, thank you so much for joining us. Former California Senate Leader Gloria Romano, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So even Arnold doesn't like the redistricting. Check this out.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is slamming Newsom's gerrymandering scheme.
We worked so hard to get the independent redistricting commission in California, and now all of a sudden they're undoing all of that. I saw on television basketball players getting arrested, coaches, famous coaches getting arrested. So they're getting arrested, and here they're cheating. And they're having a war on cheating here in America with this gerrymandering. So it's really sad. If you want to really fight for democracy, why would you go and destroy the Constitution in California?
But Newsom may not even be the real culprit behind redistricting. The Washington Post reports that former President Obama coordinated with the governor's office on how to pass the new map through the legislature and communicate it to the public. But even the far-left media is challenging the Democrats' narrative, calling out their hypocrisy for claiming Trump is rigging the election.
You said Democrats, there are no election deniers on our side of the aisle. But recently, you've been using the term rigged elections in reference to the upcoming midterms.
No, I've been using that term in the context of Donald Trump's unprecedented effort to gerrymander congressional maps in a partisan fashion all across the country, aggressively to make sure that we have fair maps across.
So when Republicans did it, it was cheating and stealing. When Democrats do it, they push back, But Democrats have gerrymandered. They've made gerrymandering a very important part of the political process. That's why Illinois and California can't really gain any more seats. Texas can gain 10 seats if they do the same thing.
Across the country, not partisan gerrymandering.
Joey, the term gerrymander goes back to 1812.
It's named after a guy named Jerry.
Yeah. So this isn't exactly a new concept.
Yeah, I hate it. I really do. I don't like it on either side. I understand the partisan strategy. You do have a party that has imported voters, whether they want to admit to that or not, because the way we decide how many states get representatives or how many they get is based on the census, which does not currently ask about citizenship. So if you brought 200,000 residents into California, chances are they're going to pick up a representative if they haven't lost that many to Texas and Tennessee, which is what actually happened. And so it's an important issue. This is something where the Constitution maybe, I don't know, just doesn't give us enough, or we've just really ruined it, because it does leave it to the states in good faith to figure out how to decide its congressional districts, and both parties in the states have just really ruined this process. What we can do is we can come up with 100 ways we shouldn't decide congressional districts, take it to court and get the court to decide on it. We can't come up with a really good way to do it, and that's the problem.
You know, Guy, we're still waiting to see what these maps are going to look like across the country once the dust settles. Ohio still has to redraw their maps. You look at this fight in California. Texas, there's lawsuits. You look at the Supreme Court case relating to Louisiana and the Voting Rights Act. Where do you think this will all end up?
Great question. And then we do it all over again in 2030, of course, in the next census. Here's the other point that I think we don't pay enough attention to it. It doesn't get enough attention here. In 2020, the last census, the Census Bureau admittedly screwed up badly.
Yeah.
To the benefit of Democrats and to the detriment of Republicans. They overcounted Democratic populations in blue states and undercounted Republican populations in red states. And therefore, most experts look at this and they say the Democrats gained about 6 House seats and therefore electoral votes in blue areas that they shouldn't have had based on a screwed up count that the Census Bureau, again, admitted. They said, yep, we got this wrong. So you could look at what Texas has done is at least just kind of bringing things back to where they should have been.
And that's why Democrats, it's not the undocumented immigrants that come. Yes, they work hard, amazing, beautiful families. People who commit crimes should never be allowed in any country. But the Democrats don't care about helping undocumented immigrants. They want more human beings counted on the census, which leads to more congressional districts. Everything is, they're so good at marketing. They've been good at marketing up until this point. But Democrats don't care about helping immigrants. They just, and this is the same, was the same in Tammany Hall when immigrants would come from Europe into New York and other Democratic machines in Chicago. They would say, vote for us, we'll help you. And so they want undocumented immigrants in blue states to increase the number of congressional districts because the census doesn't ask for citizenship, which is very bizarre. And I think the Supreme Court allowed that to take place, which I don't understand, but let's continue.
If the count had been done correctly. And then the retaliation from California is trying to, if you want to use their terminology, re-rig the thing in favor of Democrats. So I hope we get an accurate count in 2030. I think that's very important. I do find it interesting and rich watching the Save Democracy Democrats push for independent commissions in a bunch of states to do the redistricting, and now they're trying to undo that now because it's not quite partisan enough for their liking. I mean, it's hypocritical is overused as a term, but it applies here, obviously.
Tommy, how powerful do you think former President Obama still is? You know, obviously he's getting himself involved with California.
Yeah, he's so overrated at this point. I think his influence is waning, or at least I'm hopeful that it is. Although it's interesting because a lot of these Democrats are not campaigning with Kamala and Joe. You'd think that they would. They're campaigning still with Barack Obama. He's having to hold that party above water. I think he's vastly overrated. But I will say this on Prop 50. It's amazing if you're in California and you've got a budget deficit, right? Largely because of your Medi-Cal program, because you want to fund all the illegal alien health care. But Gavin Newsom, the voters decided, speaking of propositions, the voters decided overwhelmingly on Prop 36, which was supposed to be the answer to these felon coddling policies, Prop 47, and to some extent 57. But Gavin Newsom won't fully fund it. He won't really fund it much at all. So the voters already told you what they wanted. But now you're trying to bring in this Prop 50. You want people to vote on it. You're wasting all this money for this special election. They sent out these mailers, the literature on Prop 50. They made a mistake on it. They had to resend out a lot of it, costing, again, more money. Your state is underwater. You're losing people. You're funding illegal aliens. And this is Gavin Newsom's priority? That says everything about Gavin Newsom and why he will never be president.
Hey, Sean.
So Newsom has had a number of recalls in California, and we can talk forever about Gavin Newsom. He's very, very popular among Democrats. So is Zoran Mamdani. So is AOC. Well, I think AOC is quite popular. Nationwide is a different story. The Democrats don't understand why President Trump is popular. It's not, Democrats, Trump has broken the Democratic Party. They don't understand. People don't get why Trump is popular. It has nothing to do with his personality or his hair or his, status in The Apprentice or whatever, billionaire. It has to do with his policies that he wants nationwide. Democrats don't have the value system. The core of the Democratic Party wants policies banning fracking, Medicare for all, Green New Deal, rent freezes. All of these things are popular within Democratic Party strongholds. Nationwide, they're not popular. So that's why every midterms and every presidential race, they shy away from banning fracking or Green New Deal or single-payer health care. They're not proud of it. They lie to their voters. The voters are fine. They don't care if their candidates get cheated or whatever. Mamdani gets cheated and Cuomo wins, which probably won't happen. They'll still vote Democrat, just like they did when Bernie Sanders was cheated. They don't care.
Breaking news, the very latest from Austin, is Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Governor, when I looked, I have a whole sheet here of every single Democratic state, and it's just like the examples I put up there. They have gerrymandered their states left, right, sideways. They're saying, well, they're gonna do to their states what you're doing in Texas. They already did it in all of these blue states. Frankly, Republicans should have caught up a long time ago.
Well, Sean, first of all, Texas is doing what we are allowed to by the law. And one reason why that law exists the way that it does is because the Democrats brought a lawsuit after our last redistricting, and that decision in that lawsuit came out last year. And that lawsuit recognized that coalition districts are not required. And so Texas has a right to redraw these lines to fully represent the desires of every voter in the state. But Sean, that misses the point here. The point here is that Democrats have done something that's very un-Texan. They've turned their backs on their fellow Texans. When it came to a fight, they turned and ran away, not just from this redistricting fight, they ran away from dealing with the flooding issues that are still echoing across the Kerrville area. Families desperately need results from the state legislature in this 30-day special session that are not going to be delivered because Democrats are hanging out in Chicago and New York and other places.
Yeah. All right. Let me run through the states. California, Republicans, 39% of the House vote, but they only have 17% of the seats.
So check out Hannity's listing how popular Republicans are and how little representation they get within these states.
Connecticut, Republicans, 40% of the House vote, 0 seats, none, zip. Illinois, 2024, Republicans, they got a pretty respectable 47% of the statewide vote, 18% of House seats. Maryland, one of the bluest states, Trump gets 35%, but they only have 12% of House seats. Massachusetts, again, 0 House seats. Nevada is even worse. Republicans win the state. They won the state House by 10 points, walked away with 1 single House seat in the entire state. That's it. So this has been the practice of these states for the longest period of time. Now they want to attack you, and I'm thinking, okay, what you're doing is exactly what they did.
Well, and not even that, Sean. To be honest, the Texas maps are not going to be as extreme as those other blue states that you talked about. But another thing, and that is what Texas is doing under these new maps. 4 of the 5 new seats will be a majority Hispanic seats. One of the seats is going to restore the Barbara Jordan seat over in the Houston area.
President Trump almost won the Latino and Hispanic vote in 2024. That was unheard of in 2016. Okay, and the same could happen 10 years from now with the Black and African American vote. Democrats expect people of color to vote Democrat no matter what. But the question is, what did the Democratic Party do for people of color? If the response is, well, social safety nets, well, but what about alleviating poverty so you don't need the social safety nets? That's what Trump is about with tariffs, bringing home manufacturing jobs, making sure outsourcing doesn't take place for every industry.
And so these are seats where Democrats are having to come to grips with the reality. And that is, they are now losing the votes of Hispanics and black voters in the state of Texas. And these districts are going to show that Hispanics and blacks, as well as others, are voting for Republican, and Republican is their candidate of choice. And we will ensure that will be achieved at the congressional level in the state of Texas.
Well, certainly it should be somewhat proportional to what the vote is. What is your response to Kathy Hochul, who says that we are at war over Texas and the redistricting push that's going on in Texas?
That's a bunch of crazy bluster. Democrats are freaking out because they are realizing Texas has the authority to redistrict, and we're going to do so in a way that's going to lead to these additional seats that will vote Republican, and they will be serving in Congress in the next session. And so Democrats are freaking out about it, engaging in rhetoric, but I don't think they have the capability of actually living up to it and doing anything about it. Texas will continue to fight for what is right, and that's exactly what we are doing.
Is it a fair statement to say that Republicans, in terms of the percentages and numbers that they have voted, have been unfairly cheated out of their representation? I think that's a more fair statement.
Well, a different way to say it, and that is, at least in Texas,
and not your state, I'm talking about blue states.
Yeah, and I'll talk about both. In Texas, we are going to ensure that voters are going to be able to vote for their candidate of choice. For example, I think Donald Trump won in all 5 of these seats that we will be making Republican seats. The same thing should apply in all those other states, Sean, that you mentioned in your monologue, where you pointed out the gross gerrymandering in these blue states have rejected Republican candidates for office that should be serving those states, should be serving our country. It's the gerrymandering in the blue states that has distorted the politics in America.
All right, Governor, good for you. Good for the fight.
So Kevin McCarthy will have an interesting take on this. California Republican Democrat, very, very good friends with Matt Gaetz.
So joining me now is former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Mr. Speaker, it's great to have you on the show here in Texas.
Thank you.
This entire battle, Democrats, Republicans, redistricting, Texas, California, who drew blood first? Who started this, as they are saying, escalating war of redistricting?
Well, you would look at the Democrats. Democrats in New York and the congressional Democrats redistrict to draw Republicans out. If you look at Illinois, what did they do under Pritzker? They drew Republicans out. Now, California is worse than all of this because the California voters, now they may have had the right to do it because it's in the Constitution, the legislature do it. The voters of California in 2011 voted by 61% that they wanted a nonpartisan independent commission. And when they go about doing this, 35,000 people came up and gave ideas. And so what Gavin Newsom is doing, because he wants to run for president, he's literally going against the Constitution of California and what the will of the people have said, and he hasn't even drawn the lines. The legislature hasn't even drawn the lines. The DCCC sent him the lines. He's now gone before the legislature is going to vote. November 4th will be the election. No input by the public. The Democrats voted down any input. This is a true power grab by Gavin Newsom. But what's really, the voters now actually have a say. They can say no to this, that stick with the independent commission.
And even Democrat voters want the independent commission.
It's more popular today than when they voted on in 2011.
He seems to be playing to the formerly named MSNBC, not the voters of California, now MS Now, rebranded to MS Now. Gavin Newsom is a mystery what he's doing. He's mimicking Trump at times. He calls it mocking on X. He's gotten crude today. He posted some crude remarks on X. He's just someone who is flailing about trying to find a personality in his pursuit of president.
If you ever knew him,
Okay, so every single time Democrats obsess over Trump, they lose votes because it's not about President Trump. President Trump is the leader of the Republican Party, but it's about his policies, what he wants, how he sees the world, how he sees the U.S. currently and in the future, where he wants the U.S. to go in the future. Democrats have zero vision of the future. Biden had zero vision. The poor man his presidency was being controlled by people around him. Democrats forced him out. They literally forced him out. And that's a problem. That's a big problem. How do you force out the incumbent president from running again after he won his primary? See, these are things that cannot be forgotten, or they're part of the national consciousness, even though to the Democratic Party it seems completely normal. So what? It's our primary. We can do what we want. No, but the country and the world sees things differently. That's why they keep losing voters.
I've known him since he's been mayor of San Francisco. There's no principle behind him. He's a chameleon. He'll change as the weeks go by. If you talked to him a couple months ago, he wanted to be a Republican, if you listen to him, right? He says one thing, does another. He wants to be president, and he thinks this is his road. He's trying to imitate somebody. He can't get there. But when you go against the Constitution and go against the people, and he has done this before, to put something on the ballot to try to lie to the public, and they vote him down. I believe that same thing can happen here. Remember, when this was on the ballot in 2011, it was the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi and Gavin, who spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to stop it because they want all the power from the politicians. Think, 40% of the vote will go Republican about in California, and they'll end up with just 6% of the seats. People don't think that's right because it's more than 5 seats. It's really 9 seats because he takes the swing districts and solidifies them.
You are a representative from the state of California. You were the Speaker of the House. You spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C. Maybe you can help me understand the Washington, D.C. suburbs. I don't understand Northern Virginia. I don't understand Loudoun County. This is the latest story out of Loudoun County where public schools there, the public school district, has suspended 2 boys over their interactions with a female student.
Cozy. Senator Ted Cruz. You know, I'd love to do another debate with Gavin Newsom and Governor DeSantis, my governor, or maybe if maybe you should debate Gavin Newsom. I think we should all have the.
He's very good at running away from the facts and running away from the record. But you think about California. California has massive advantages. It has beautiful scenery, beautiful natural resources. The Pacific Ocean is gorgeous. The mountains are incredible. The weather is 75 degrees all day long. It's been blessed to be an incredible economic engine of this country for decades. And it is amazing. I spend a lot of time in California. As you know, my wife, Heidi, is a native Californian. When I'm out there, I look around and I'm like, how did these people manage to screw this place up? And it's a combination of every bad left-wing idea. So it's out of control taxes, it's out of control regulations, it's out of control lawsuits. You try to start a business, you'll get sued like crazy. Your house gets burned down in a fire, you can't rebuild the house.
And insurance companies don't want to insure in California. That's also a big thing. Homeowners insurance, fire insurance, car insurance. The one-party rule has been such a catastrophe, but the thing is, you have so many indoctrinated, beautiful people wonderful people, but very indoctrinated. And the indoctrination doesn't correlate to economic success or success statewide. Let's continue.
You can't afford it. You couldn't get insurance because the lawsuits are so bad there, no one would insure your house to begin with. And you know what? Before your house burned down, you had people breaking in and robbing it because the police there won't prosecute criminals. They won't lock up someone who attacks you. Their view is abolish the police. Their view is let the criminals go. And that's not to mention the illegals that Gavin Newsom is inviting in. If you're an illegal alien, come to California. If you're a Venezuelan gang member, come to California. If you're a murderer or rapist, Gavin Newsom wants you to come to California. And the double standard, look, I get how Hollywood gazillionaires can live in opulence along the Pacific Ocean.
So really quickly, that's hyperbolic, and it's true that there are people who are criminals who commit terrible, terrible, heinous crimes who shouldn't be in the country. That's why ICE exists, to enforce deportation laws. That's what is popular nationwide. The vast majority of undocumented immigrants are wonderful, amazing human beings, hardworking. The problem with Democrats in California nationwide is they don't really care about immigrants. They care about political power. They care about immigrants, undocumented, being counted in a census. They care about looking like they're moral at the expense of actually being moral. But let's continue.
But it is incredibly hard for working men and women. If you're a cop in California, if you're a teacher in California, if you're an electrician in California, it is really tough to make ends meet. And there's a reason the people of California are fleeing. They are fleeing and coming to Texas. One of my favorite statistics, Sean, the cost of a one-way U-Haul from California to Texas is more than 300%. The cost of a U-Haul going the other way around, because they're all going one way. They ain't going the other. And I'll give you an even more stunning statistic. The cost of a one-way U-Haul from Silicon Valley to Austin, Texas, is more than 500% the cost of a U-Haul going the other way, because no one's going the other way.
Because you're doing U-Haul a favor. If you're going from Texas to California, you are actually doing U-Haul a favor by getting that vehicle or that trailer back to California for more people to even exit. What do you make of the fact the Democratic Party is such an identity crisis? They're paying tens of millions of dollars how to communicate with men. You see these different iterations, if you will, of Gavin. Gavin the podcaster sitting down with Bannon and Charlie Kerr.
This is the thing with Newsom. He talks like this, almost like a Clint Eastwood type of. He has that Clint Eastwood, although Clint Eastwood is genuine and authentic. But then you have Newsom with that, like, kind of slick, slippery, tough guy. But also liberal and intelligent and morally superior, but still tough, because you have to combine the two. You can't be the prototypical, wonderful, morally superior, progressive, liberal, but also you got to be tough and take on the Trumpers. And so he has that kind of slick kind of appeal, and J.D. Vance will win every debate. There is no chance that J.D. Vance that Newsom could defeat J.D. Vance in a debate. But Medium, New York Times, anyone going up against the Republican, the Washington Post and New York Times and others, CNN, MSNBC, the new poll said Liz Cheney did great as the Democratic nominee against J.D. Vance.
Then it's Gavin trying to beat Donald Trump. What you don't see is Gavin lowering crime rates. You don't see Gavin fixing his broken schools. You don't see Gavin helping the people in Pacific Palisades. You don't see Gavin, out there rolling up his sleeves and getting the job done. And I don't know, maybe he thinks this is going to work. Maybe that'll rile up at the base of the Democratic Party that's radicalized, but that's not going to sell. America does not want to be California, especially in its current condition.
But see, that should be Make America California. Make America New York City with Mamdani. Democrats should be proud. Democrats should be proud of their most popular candidates. Okay, they should be proud of their most popular candidates. Let's listen to this.
Voting is underway there now in a special election on Proposition 50. That's the redistricting proposition. Governor Gavin Newsom's latest scheme to redraw the state's congressional map in a bid to mirror Texas's redistricting earlier this year.
5 California Republicans will potentially lose their seats if voters approve the proposition next week. One of them joins us now, California Congressman Kevin Kiley. So, Congressman, California has 52 congressional seats. President Trump won 38.3% of the vote during the last presidential election. And yet, even today, with these 5 seats still intact ahead of next Tuesday, including yours, there's just a handful of them that are for Republicans.
That's right. We have 9 right now, so that's about 17% of our state seats. And as you say, we get about 40% of the vote in statewide elections. So already very disproportionate. But now Newsom has come up with this gerrymandering scheme where he has explicitly said the goal is to make the states, quote, a whole lot bluer and pick up 5 seats. And, you got to hand it to Newsom. He's not doing just any old gerrymander. He's doing a gerrymander that has been called one of the worst of the last 50 years by Princeton University's Gerrymander Project. They gave it an F grade. So, you guys were talking about the failed policies in California. California is number 1 in poverty, number 1 in homelessness, number 1 in unemployment. So now with Prop 50, Gavin Newsom also wants to make us number 1 in gerrymandering.
It really goes back so far in California, the Democrat gerrymandering. Of course, they're always claiming it's Republicans. Back to, it probably goes before Willie Brown, but Willie Brown, the former boyfriend of Kamala Harris, was the speaker of the Assembly, and he did a lot of wheeling and dealing, extraordinary. It's been laid out elsewhere, but not all of it was above board in order to redistrict. That's where it began. It began with Democrats, and they're the ones who changed the state to begin with. Now they want to make it even worse, right?
Well, that's exactly right. And, we've had this independent citizens commission that the voters established, but they never wanted this commission to be there. Nancy Pelosi and the state Democrat Party led the opposition to the creation of the independent citizens commission. And so they've been looking for any pretext to get rid of it so that they could gerrymander the state to the hilt. So that's what Prop 50 is all about. And they're asking voters to embrace this tortured logic that some other state is doing something wrong, so we should do it too. Except do it actually a lot more. And if California voters, are able to see what they're actually voting on this initiative, they would overwhelmingly reject it. But the problem is Gavin Newsom has spent over $100 million and even contorted the language that's on the ballot itself in order to try to confuse people and mislead people into thinking they're voting for something else entirely.
Congressman, I can't help but think about over the years how many times we've been warned frantically by Democrats, including Gavin Newsom, about the threat to democracy. And yet here you have the governor of California rigging the gerrymandering to favor Democrats to have one-party rule even more than they do right now, which is pretty significant. You pointed out the numbers on presidential representation. It's completely one-sided. And yet they're tripling down on one-party rule, which has led to the demise of the economy and just the way of life in California. What is your response to them claiming, again, that they're all for protecting democracy, but really they just want a power lock by redoing these districts so they never lose again?
Right. So we need to destroy democracy in order to save democracy. They'll say, well, Texas gerrymandered, that's a bad gerrymander. And, North Carolina is going to gerrymander after us. That's a bad gerrymander. But this is a good gerrymander. It just makes absolutely no sense. My view is that gerrymandering is wrong wherever it occurs, and California voters should reject it in the one place we can, our own state. But you make a very important point. That this isn't really Democrat versus Republican. This is voters versus politicians. Mm-hmm. And what Newsom is trying to do here is to entrench even more power in the hands of a corrupt political class that has caused California to go from being the most beautiful state in the country to being the most popular state to leave. And so, we have a lot of momentum in California right now, by the way. We've defeated Newsom time and time again on policy. We've defeated him in recent elections. And so this is an attempt to try to stall that momentum that is leading our state back to sanity.
Well, you still have, as I counted, 9 Republican congressmen there, but you could have 0. It's the same in Massachusetts. Yeah. They had about the same number of people percentage-wise voting for Trump in the last election. They have 0 Republican representatives. representatives in Congress.
So conservatives and Republicans are very popular nationwide. The numbers show that. You can the hilarious rebuttal is, oh well, Green New Deal is very popular. Yeah, you get only positive news coverage, but Democrats don't run on Green New Deal. Yet they say the environment and the planet, and we don't have time, but they're not talking about that. Why aren't they talking about these things? Because they truly don't believe in them. This is all. They don't really stand for anything in particular. If they can feel morally superior in some way, shape, or form, that's what they stand for at that moment, as long as it leads to the attainment of political power. Anyway, hit subscribe to this channel, people. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel right now. It's below in the description and pinned comment. I will see you. I'll see you about 9 p.m. Eastern.